Good evening and welcome to this evening's newscast on Kaiju Radio. Kevin Smith here.
And I am Kayla King.
Let's get to the news in detail. While Guyana continues to give ExxonMobil much leverage to ignore its laws and pollute its airspace with toxic chemicals that are released from the burning of 16 million cubic feet of gas per day, no-nonsense American environmental groups are showing the world that they refuse to allow such practices to go unpunished. On Tuesday, for example, ExxonMobil Corporation was slapped with a $14.25 million penalty by U.S. District Court Judge David Hittner for polluting Texas communities via illegal flaring at its sprawling 3,400-acre Baton complex, which houses a refinery and chemical plant. Tens of thousands of people live within 3 miles of the said complex. Meanwhile, leader of the opposition Joseph Harmon has stated that, in his view, the recent media reports relating to occurrences at the ERC are an attempt to dismantle it. Harmon made this assertion during his budget debate speech on Monday, during which he also stated that under the coalition's purview, the ERC remained a robust, apolitical, independent constitution, with full powers under the law to pursue anyone who sought to sow the seeds of division among our people. He went on to say that the opposition never considered interfering with the ERC's independence, and once allowed to fulfill its mandate with robust leadership, it can play a pivotal role in the resolution of national ethnic issues. And moving on. The prosecution is expected to call its 2 final witnesses to testify in the money changer and daughter's murder preliminary inquiry. The matter was today called in the Sparendam Magistrates Court before Magistrate Alicia George. The murder PI is being conducted for Aaron Lachman and his 18-year-old daughter, Ariana Lachman. The police prosecutor yesterday, that should be today, called 4 witnesses to testify, and they were subjected to be cross-examined. And moving on, the partially decomposed body of yet-to-be-identified man was today discovered floating in the canal at Crowell and Wellington Streets in Georgetown. It is understood that the discovery was made by passers-by around noon in front of the Metro Guyana building. Upon seeing the corpse floating in the canal, they immediately made a report to police, and several ranks arrived shortly after. Information suggests that the body was found floating face down in the canal with 2 plastic bags with garbage inside attached to it. In photographs seen, the body appeared to be that of a man of African descent. And now we head over to Kayla King for the rest of your nightly newscast.
Now let's tell you, beaten into submission, disfigured, and forced to endure 7 hours of torture were the claims made by another woman who was allegedly abducted and brutalized by serial rapist 37-year-old Thurston Semple. Semple, a taxi driver, is currently in police custody for raping, sodomizing, and battering a Venezuelan sex worker on Wednesday last at his Tugville Terrace home. Following his arrest on Monday, online media platforms rushed to publish his photo, which, according to another victim, made her tremble. That victim, another Venezuelan woman, reached out to us yesterday, where she shared her horrifying experience of allegedly being abducted and tortured both physically and sexually by Semple. Anyone who might have been a victim of Semple's can feel free to contact the nearest police station or Kaiju News on telephone numbers 225-8473, 624-6456, or 689-1219. Meanwhile, the Oil and Gas Governance Network awaits the publication of oil reports dating back to the beginning of oil production. Vice President Dr. Barjagdio had committed during a February 9th press conference that the government would make the reports available to the press. 3 weeks later, the press does not have access to these reports, and Kaicher has been given the royal runaround in its attempts to access them. OGGN is banking on the reports to make accurate calculations of Guyana's royalty and profit share from the scale of its crude. The body insists that it should be the Guyanese government that releases the reports, rather than having the public rely on ExxonMobil's local subsidiary, Esso. The body said that asking Exxon to help with the calculation is like asking a fox to count the number of chickens in the coop. In other news, Kaicher exposed that the targets being proposed by the Natural Resources Ministry in the draft local content policy were not informed by a gap analysis. Instead, most of the targets were plagiarized from Ghana's local content regulations. The ministry said it is essential for one to be aware that the upstream oil and gas sector has a particular language that mirrors certain standardized characteristics and predefined roles that are common across the industry worldwide. Even if this is the case, the ministry still failed to say why it copied categories of work or services to be supplied to the oil industry in the exact order as listed in Ghana's regulations, along with the exact target numbers for startup and even spelling errors. Get the full details in today's Kaicher News. If an oil spill is to occur right now on Guyana's shores, our country would sink into debt because of our inability to obtain written evidence that the operators in the Stabroek Block, ExxonMobil, Hess, and CNOOC or Nexen, will accept full liability for any ensuing costs. We reached out to Exxon's government and public affairs advisor Janelle Prasad via email on February 18, 2020, to ascertain whether the company has stuck to its commitment and provided evidence to the government that Guyana has comprehensive oil disaster coverage from the parent companies. Prasad gave a reply on March 1, 2020, but she dodged the question with the response providing no indication of such.
And that just about brings us to the end of this evening's newscast. But before we go, let's head over to the page 7 of today's Kaicher newspaper that is dedicated to being blunt. As we report another brutal rape and abuse of a woman by a serial rapist, we dream of the precedent that would be set if punishments for sexual offenses were harsher, and if the justice system worked for all victims of sexual assault. We toy with the idea that serial rape could be one of those crimes punishable by the death penalty. And that brings us to the end of this evening's newscast. I am Kevin Smith.
And I am Kayla King.
Thank you for listening.
Want value for your advertising?